Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Samuel and I'm a traveling English teacher or coach or tutor, whatever you want to call it. Welcome to my classroom. I wanted to sit down and talk today just a little bit about my life and what's going on and also my profession, because I feel like sometimes things happen at the right moment. So I've recently moved here to New Zealand and I'm continuing with my English classes and I'm tutoring an individual and we're reading The Grapes of Wrath together. And honestly, if I could get all of chapter 5 tattooed on my body, I think I would do it. So yeah, I just moved here to New Zealand and I've noticed a lot of things. I've noticed, firstly, that as a traveler, I have entirely lost all of my connection to the land. Before I talk about what that means exactly, I'm going to continue on. I've also noticed that there are so many fresh products and ingredients here that I didn't necessarily have or was even aware of when I was living in the United States or when I was growing up as a child. There are products like manuka honey, avocados, lemons, oranges, kiwi fruit, all sorts of really great ingredients that I appreciate so much to have. And I was working on a kiwi fruit farm for about 3 weeks, and I'll never forget this memory of when I picked a ripe kiwi fruit and I bit into it, and it just was life-changing almost. And I realized in that moment that I had lost my connection to the land. Of course as a traveler, but also in my everyday life, living as a modern human in a rich country. So The Grapes of Wrath, for those who don't know, takes place during the 1930s, which was the Great Depression era, and also the era of the Dust Bowl, which was an anthropogenic environmental crisis caused by farmers depleting the land of its natural ingredients and having the topsoil fly off. The dust would create storms, and it would be, in the novel at least, it serves as this oppressive force that is just inescapable. Anyway, chapter 5 takes place where these tenant farmers are essentially being kicked off their own land because they've borrowed money from the bank that they can't pay back. All of the crops are failing, there's no source of income, the bank is coming to repossess the land and turn it over to a different farmer who will drive a tractor to be able to cultivate the land more efficiently without these tenant farmers. So I'm just going to read a couple of quotes from chapter 5 that I've picked out that hopefully follow a thread that you can follow. And the conversation that's going on is between these tenant farmers that are being displaced and the spokesperson for the bank. So the tenant farmers say, "Sure, but it's our land. We were born on it, and we got killed on it, died on it. That makes ownership, not a paper and numbers. It's too late. The bank, the monster, has to have profits all the time. It can't wait. It'll die. No taxes go on. When the monster stops growing, it dies. It can't stay one size. The bank is something more than men, I tell you. It's the monster. Men made it, but they can't control it. The tractors came over the roads and into the fields, great crawlers, moving like insects, having the incredible strength of insects. The man sitting in the iron seat did not look like a man. Gloved, goggled, rubber dust mask over his nose and mouth, he was a part of the monster, a robot in the seat. If a seed dropped, did not germinate, it was nothing. If the young thrusting plant withered in drought or drowned in a flood of rain, it was no more to the driver than to the tractor. He loved the land no more than the bank loved the land. He could admire the tractor, its machine surfaces, its surge of power, the roar of its detonating cylinders, but it was not his tractor. Behind the tractor rolled the shining discs, cutting the earth with blades, not plowing, but surgery, pushing the cut earth. He, the tractor driver, could not see the land as it was. He could not smell the land as it smelled. The land bore under iron, and under iron gradually died. For it was not loved or hated. It had no prayers or curses. Of course, here the farmers are an extended metaphor for the land. Their identity itself is within the land. I thought about that a little bit, and I realized that my only connection with the land, besides the Kiwi farming experience that I had, was as a child. With my grandmother, we started a garden together, and I remember watching the process, the miracle that happens as you put a seed in the earth and you watch it germinate. You work with the land and it reciprocates and gives back to you. That's a little taste of my childhood. Thank you, Nanny, so much for that experience. I really appreciate it. And also, of course, the land is our history. In The Grapes of Wrath, the tenant farmers talk about how for generations they've been on this land. However, it's also worth mentioning that land ownership itself can be violent. These tenant farmers talk about how they tamed the land, they killed the snakes, they weeded it, their grandfathers killed the Native Americans that were on it, drove them out. Of course, here we also see the horrors of colonization that occurred, and I think it kind of shows us that land ownership in itself can be violent. It can displace people, it can destroy nature that's already there. The more I read about them, the more I realize that indigenous wisdom has so much to offer. The more I realize that land is identity. And now I'm here in New Zealand and I am living among the Maori people. And I've done some research on them. Again, all of this is happening at such an opportune time. For indigenous people like the Maori, the land for them is a form of their identity. And that was taken away from them. Imagine having your entire identity connected to the land and then having that taken away from you. Your whole way of life gone. That's traumatic. Doing some research, I found that the Maori people regard land, soil, and water as taonga, or treasures. In fact, the Maori people as a whole can even be referred to using the term tangata whenua, which translate into people of the land. This can't be a coincidence. After having this class and reading The Grapes of Wrath and moving to New Zealand, it feels like worlds are just colliding here. And I'm sorry, I have to share it. And in addition to that, there are over 500 federally recognized tribes in the United States. The Native Americans built their identity on the land. It was their life. And we took it away from them. And I feel like this colonial idea of land ownership has also problematic roots, and that these tenant farmers serve as the final way of life that was forever changed by big industry, profit-driven motives, and commercialization. And I see this in my state where I grew up, that there's no connection to the land, that everything is been commodified, that everything is a product. And that growing up, I was so lucky to be able to hold the earth in my hands, smell it, and see what it can do firsthand for us. That's a real gift. Fast forward to the future, and the UN has estimated that 90% of the Earth's topsoil will be at risk by 2050. Another Dust Bowl era type situation, but globally. In thinking about these tenant farmers in The Grapes of Wrath from Steinbeck's novel, and also indigenous wisdom, I've learned that our relationships are everything. Our relationship to the land, to nature, to our friends, to our family, but also our communities, which is another thing I feel like I really lack as a traveler, are so important. Relationships built on love. And I'm afraid that in severing my connections to the land, I have become more spiritually impoverished and less connected to the earth as a whole. However, Steinbeck offers a glimmer of hope at the end of this chapter. He writes that there's some way to stop this. It's not like lightning or earthquakes. We've got a bad thing made by men, and by God, that's something we can change. This is why I refuse to give up. This is why I feel empowered to reclaim what has been lost, what I have lost, what I have allowed myself to lose by thinking that I am powerless compared to big business, industry, and the powers that be. And I believe that change starts with one person. And maybe that one person is you. So this has been my Lessons of a Language Teacher. If you like this reflection and would like for me to continue to do similar things in the future, please let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate that. And thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe if you think this content is worth seeing by other people. Thank you so much.